Excellent. So welcome everybody. We're going to get started here with our public grooming for the Magento PWA project. So this week, as mentioned, we're going to be focused primarily on the Venya theme, and so James and I had a chance to actually get a couple examples started relative to what we want to accomplish today. And so this is a small example, really representative of how we're starting to do some interconnects between the experiences you see currently in the latest builds of the theme, specifically here with the link towards the product details in the category product list. So for today's grooming, and definitely want to get your input on this, for today's grooming, we're going to start looking at these aspects, but then use what we have here on the development documentation as a guideline. So James Kakelman here in Austin has done a fantastic job in collaboration with Salmi on the UX side, breaking things down in components. And a lot of these are already seen in things like the homepage. Art's done a great job at implementing those, but we need to get a little bit further down and start looking at key experiences, potentially adding details to things like the footer, the cart and checkout experience, and such. And so, James and I again put together this basic example of how might we break this down in a way that that can be essentially self-sufficient, right? And so we're starting to link a little bit more to the development documentation. We're starting to embed more images. And so we wanted to share, as we get started here, an example of what we think might make these a bit more useful and break these down into kind of actionable tasks for the backlog itself. And so if you guys bear with me here for a minute or two, and again, James, feel free to jump in here, but
don't worry, there's not a real bear here with us.
Okay, good. We'll break things down in terms of what we think is going to be essentially the minimal amount of definition to kind of get these started. So if you look at what we've got here, again, something as simple as linking a product details page in the category product list is something we again would classify as the Venya concept. The description, the documentation would be right here as you see in the documentation itself. Goes right to the product listing here. Clearly has the image, which you can embed also in ZenHub as you would with GitHub, and then links to a scenario-based approach. Again, as a shopper, I want to easily move from a list representing product to details so I can learn more. Now, the nice thing about this, and James had raised this, is that this starts to highlight a couple questions in terms of routing and some of the work on some of the URL resolvers as part of this. And so something as simple as this starts to highlight some questions that James and team can answer along the way. And so, but we wanted to show this example because it's a little bit more extensive than what we've had before, which again does cross-link with the documentation, does show a scenario-based approach, highlights some assumptions along the way. We're assuming you're set up and you're understanding how the routing works, but then has a series of tasks. Again, one of the primary goals for these Friday sessions is to look at more of these tasks. So again, so new people to the project can start contributing right away and kind of know where to begin. So that's essentially what the style of which we'd like to cover, and we're going to go through a couple examples on the Venya theme to do so.
All right. Would you thank you very much for the introduction. Do you want to toss it over so we can talk about the story that you happen to about us?
Yeah.
So first of all, hello, Mr. Hanston. Thank you for joining us.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're great.
Hey.
Thank you for coming. It must be late for you. It's late for Art too.
Well, actually, it's 12 right now, the noon. But I was in another meeting, so I jump in right away.
I thought you were in some exotic European locale. Sounds like you're just like on the Eastern Seaboard.
Right, I'm in Argentina. Right.
Oh, Argentina, of course. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am really glad you showed up, and we've got Jimmy too. So broadly speaking, we have found that the large number of developers who have come on board just in the recent weeks have one of two types of preference. One is they want to work on very traditional Magento skill sets, so PHP, maybe XML, and they would like to help us do backing stuff. And we need to produce more material for them to work with. I think we would ideally like them to work most with GraphQL right now because they have the longest backlog and would help us the most.
Yep.
And then the other profile of a person is typified by Art here or by Carl, where you'd like to work on the visual components. You are the ideal customer for the PWA Studio developer experience. And so have been running around concerning myself with that developer experience, but and so the backlog is full of items to improve it. But you guys need to be using that product. So we've got a backlog that has theme items combined with the prerequisites for theme items. Well, we tried to correct that a little bit. We're starting here because this is something simple to implement that can get you on board. And we're going to more and more produce stories, like Eric said, that involve implementing a particular part of the theme. Here's this one. I don't know if you've noticed, but in a category page, if you click on a product, it doesn't take you to the product page. Does anyone have any other experience besides that? Jimmy's here. Jimmy, that still doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that doesn't work.
Yeah, so let's do that. That seems like that's a combination of front-end development and also exploring more of the standard way that you implement things in PWA Studio. Because we have not, because the checkout flow that we've built is entirely within kind of one page, which is a feature. You don't have to leave the product detail page to check out. We haven't done much navigation yet, but that's what this is. If you, right now, load a category page, which I think we could do, as a matter of fact, maybe I'll share my screen to do it.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. Let me stop here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, we got this going. And I will pop this out so it's not a huge confusing mess. And we will load, oh, I don't know, that's not what it is. It is, what do we have? Bottoms. Is that a thing? What are the, okay, I'm losing my mind. What is the category, what are the categories that are available? Is it just tops? I'm okay.
You just want to pick a random category?
Yes, I'm suddenly forgetting.
Pick like women or something.
Is it women? Okay, so did I type women's when I should have typed?
Yeah, like women.html.
Okay, but so that's the Luma data. That's okay. So I don't have it. Let's not worry about it. Let's say that I actually have the Venia. I have the Luma data here. No, I don't have that either. Okay. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, I think an example would be helpful. We can pull that,
it's really important to have one. I was hoping to have one prepared, so let me just get that going.
So I think when you get that going, I think we can actually raise up a very similar story at the same time, right? And so I think one of the things I'd love to see also is to basically take this and clone it for the homepage as well. It's about adding that interconnectivity between these pages. And so the same principle of adding, basically linking something to the product details page, I think is still still within play for this. And so I think based on where we land with this, we can do the same thing for home pages.
For some reason, all of the SEO URLs in the last update turned from X to Venia-X. That's a cool new thing that I didn't know about. This just keeps happening. We have a whole lot of motion, so there are a whole lot of sudden and slightly scary changes. Let me share my, let me join the meeting because I'm not there either, and share my screen. Or Outlook will crash. That's also a thing that can happen. Okay. Guys, I'm almost there. Okay, don't join the audio. And instead share my screen, which, what happened? Move this to here. And then I'm going to share my screen. And somehow, against all odds, we are actually here on a category page. Thank you for waiting. So this is the Venia Bottoms category page, and you'll notice that it does look at data from the network. When you refresh it, it's pulling a GraphQL query that, first of all, resolves the route, and then when it finds out that it's a category page, it knows to download the category root component and then run a GraphQL query that gets the category data. So this is live data, and the items that come in indeed have a name and a price and a small image. But there's not enough information here for us to actually navigate there. So we're going to need to change the query, and we're going to need to figure out how routing works. So if I click one of these guys, like the Tatiana skirt, nothing happens. As a matter of fact, my mouse cursor is stuck, so you don't even get, yeah. And if you look at it, this React component, you look at it in DOM, and I strongly suggest getting the React tools, because those, okay, sorry, I apparently clicked on the wrong thing. The React developer tools, and then you can use the inspector to navigate in the React tree to something. This is a gallery item, and that gallery item is sort of a generic concept that can be populated with any type of information. And you can see that it contains divs and images, but it doesn't contain an anchor or a link tag. Now, in the context of our progressive web app, you may want to use a React router link tag, but that's something I'll leave up to the implementer. But you can see here that there is such a thing as a gallery item, and a gallery item has such a thing as, let's see if I can't get here. All right. Are you guys able to see this implementation? I know it's it might not be the easiest theme to see. Maybe I can make it more high contrast. You guys are okay? Here we go. We're using gallery item to render our product, and it returns the divs that we saw in the DOM. Looks like we're going to need to either add a generic concept of a link to the gallery item, or we're going to have to make something that works like gallery item but is specifically for products and links to product details. And that's the quick walkthrough of the current state. I'm going to stop the screen share so we can go back to that, and we can share ZenHub.
Yep.
And talk about it. So we've already got the product listing, and we've just got to kind of use some React chops to decide how to add some functionality to it or add a variant to it. And then we got to set up the navigation that takes you into the product detail. It sounds like it's going to involve some React and JavaScript, some adjustment of the GraphQL query so we can pull down the data necessary. I'm thinking URL key in order to navigate to it. And then we've got to make sure that it's working with the router. Who has already heard enough and just wants on board with this and is just super excited? Do we have a volunteer, or if anyone has clarifying questions, that would also be great. Okay, everyone has perfect clarity.
This is perfect clarity. Yeah.
I talked to you, Carl, yesterday, and I know that there was we talked a little bit about working in image gallery component. But you can also feel free to take this one, so don't feel like you're already reserved. If this is something, this is a little bit smaller, I would say. So if you want to do that, do that. Art has already got something you're working on. And this isn't sprint planning. This is just to estimate the task.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, no, you're not taking this to actually execute on.
Okay.
All right. So in terms of how long you think this would take a developer of, average skill in the art, right, as they say, would you call this a full sprint, half a sprint, less than half a sprint, an hour before dessert?
I'm going to actually check a couple of tickets that we did for a different React project and probably add a little more time to it because we did this sort of linking with a different site. So.
Great.
So you're going to check out some tickets. Again, just the exercise here being that we use our expertise to judge this relative size of a task. That's a discussion. Art, do you have any opinion on what's hard or easy about this and how large it is?
Yep. According to this, first of all, I have one first question. This new logic to navigate customer from category, for example, by clicking on image without link inside the HTML rendered code, will we keep this logic through the whole team?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that you should stay without a link. I'm observing that there isn't a link right now.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah, that's the missing functionality. That's why it doesn't click in, is that there's nothing doing that. But please do add a link. I can tell you that because our Magento router is based on React router, one of the best practices with React router is instead of using an A tag directly, you're supposed to use its link tag in order to achieve the real underlying routing. We're not going to demand that because, you know, if you find a better way, you find a better way. We care about simplicity. So just, you know, that's not a detail that we care about. We're just showing you what exists today.
Okay, yep, no problem. We will just decide one time. Will we use this or will we use another way to, yeah, that's it.
We haven't had a lot of chance to prove it out, and even though I think it's a fundamental part of the architecture, even client-side routing,
yep.
We're still open to change, mostly in the direction of simplicity, but we're open to change about it. We would love to have feedback about it.
Yep, according to this task, I would say not so complicated. Which numbers actually do we have there? Again, 1, 2, 3, 5. 1,
Yep.
2, 3, 5. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13.
So we're 8, and just for Carl's benefit, where 8 is essentially a full sprint, right? Each increment is a day, knowing that there's not really a 10 in there because there's always administrative. So.
I would say 3.
Any takers?
Any conflicting opinions? I'm not going to rule yet. Jimmy, how long do you think this is? We lost Jimmy. He might have a cat.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I think a 3 to 5 is fair.
You think a 3 to 5? Okay.
I'm certainly less technical than you guys. It feels like there's a lot to unpack here. So to me, I would be more comfortable with a 5. That's
right.
As you know, if I had my poker playing deck here, I would say 5 just to be cautious, because I'd rather do this right, have some experimentation, allow for questions. But I definitely feel like it was as big as a full, but a 5 felt good.
Just bearing in mind, you guys, that the folks attending this session have more familiarity, more expertise than who might be implementing. There are a lot of folks in community asking for work who aren't here today. And I think if I'm imagining one of those folks implementing this, it's a 5 or an 8.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's Art or Jimmy doing it, it's a 3 or a 5. So can we say 5?
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's do it a
Cool.
5. All right.
Yeah, and I think it also gets us in the habit of having some discussion around the estimate as well, which I think is a healthy exercise. So
okay, hold on. I'm going to do the groomed move. Groomed.
Looks like he punched me in the back, also on video, by the way.
Yeah, and you didn't sell it at all.
I didn't. I should have. I wasn't prepared for that. So let's. So I think we can consider this one groomed. Again, we did a little bit of pre-work on this one, partially to show the style and the detail, which I think is spot on. Others to get the estimate, and then I think kind of show your thinking behind the scenes of how this comes together. So in terms of the next story, a couple of different ways we can go. While you're getting set up on this, maybe it's the exact same piece of work. I'd love to see this work from the homepage in addition to the category page.
Hey, yeah.
Is that if we get this done first, I would feel like that would be something that could be done, again, just a product person here, that would be done fairly straightforward afterwards, but as a distinguished different piece of work.
Yes.
Yep.
So we don't yet have a strong definition of the commonality between product listing implementations in, for instance, Art's category widget and the category page. I think it's likely that as Venia develops and as other theme develops, people will want variants.
Yep.
And they may ultimately be implemented in different ways.
Yep.
But I think we can say for sure now that if you do this in one category listing component, that it should work in everything that uses the category listing component.
Exactly.
And you feel free to refactor something to use it if you see that it can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's not an implementation detail. I think that's a system feature.
Yeah.
We're not mentioning it in this story because we just wanted to feel real simple, just make it work on the category page. We hope that's a side effect.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. So do you think, in the interest of grooming, creating one more story, do you think we can clone this, make a couple modifications, and
so we could, but I think we have another story that we want to look at. It's one that I spoke with Carl about yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And I also feel like it might need some new phrasing. So, and that's 161 implements. Sorry, that's not it. 163 implement product gallery component.
All right.
It's should be at the top, or you can FI 163 probably. Right?
There it is, right here. This one.
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was initially a little confused about what the product gallery was, because its nomenclature has changed, and of course it's the carousel, right?
Yes.
On the product detail page. So let's go look at that real fast. And the image carousel that's right here for product detail.
And you're referring to?
Yeah, and then the recommended carousel that's right there. And then if you scroll down on the left under component specifications, there's another image carousel down there. And this gives you a little bit more detail. If you scroll down, you get this cover flow experience that we could have. So that's the one that we focused on, Carl, and you and I talked about this yesterday. Samia's here, and we would love input too on what the MVP is for this, this carousel concept that differs from a list of products that's in a grid or a list. Let's talk about it. Like, what's the first thing we want to implement?
So I think what we previously discussed is that we will have the carousel, but get rid of the see all the variables button because that requires some tagging and filtering on the end of on the back end.
Okay.
So it literally would be, it would swipe one way or the other, and one image moves into focus, and tapping on that image goes to that product detail page.
Okay. And you want the cover flow smoothness.
Yes.
That's super exciting, and it's one of the high points of PWA as a concept that the high level developer relations people at Google, et cetera, are selling. It's like this type of interaction, which has been janky on the web, should be just perfectly natural. It's a high bar to set, so I think it's an exciting thing to see if we can do it.
What is? I mean, that's ultimately not just building another theme, right? So I think we should definitely push in some of these areas that get us.
Building big themes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
but now there's 3 competing treatments that I want to understand how they're different. Obviously, this one is for a cross-sell, which is new arrivals. But then there's also the treatments that were in the previous product detail page we were looking at.
Yep.
And that's back 1. So we'll call this cover flow.
Yep.
And then the recommended carousel here, right now, that's implemented in a more traditional sort of swipe, horizontal list.
They are meant to be options. It is not necessary that we implement both.
Okay.
If the decision is to say we use one type of carousel for all
Yeah.
purposes for MVP, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it more as providing layout options for whoever does customize the theme. So you can either use carousel style 1, 2, or 3, depending on if you want to distinguish, recommended from new arrivals from,
right.
Because a homepage is a bit more marketing-y.
Yeah.
But when you're shopping, you really want a quick snapshot of, and you see more items at a time when you do it this way.
That's true, yeah.
So that was the thought process behind it.
Okay, so do we want to do the cover flow just because it's fun, or do we see that this confers more business value because you see more at the same time and that it's easier and quicker to implement?
I feel like the cover flow has more visual impact.
Yeah, it really does.
Right?
Yeah.
So we can start with that, and then if we have time or incrementally, we could implement some of the others. There's one more that I think is under recommended.
All the way up. So now, saving the best for last, this is the actual main product image feature in this related gallery, which currently is not fully implemented. It's there on the product detail page, but Jimmy, can you talk briefly about what it does and doesn't do right now?
You're talking about the actual image gallery for the photos?
The actual main image and alternate images for the product.
Yeah, I mean the gallery component exists, right? It just got mixed up when we did when we started doing selection on lists.
Okay.
And so the PR that wired it up so that selection of those thumbnails actually changed the image. I'm pretty sure that got swallowed at some point. So we just need to implement selecting a thumbnail, changing the main image.
Okay.
And it's also, is it hooked up to real data? It is, right?
Yeah.
We do have one additional.
Right. We call that more the gallery, right? So I was looking for that on the.
Yeah. My point is that there's really not much to do there, James.
All right. So maybe that's a smaller or separate story to implement just the switching. All right. Back to the cover flow one.
Yeah, left.
Yeah, you can scroll.
Yeah, I would focus on the cover flow one.
Yep.
This is another option.
Okay.
If we want to say this is a good hybrid of single item and multiple items at the same time.
Right.
Instead of doing cover flow with sort of effective, we could go this way and then
Let's not kill anything.
yeah, an apple and an orange at the same time.
Well, since, I mean, from a product standpoint, because we haven't estimated this, I think it'd be great to have all of them, right? And so I think, what I see here is an iteration from one to another. I think cover flow, I think we all agree, is ultimately the end state, but is going to take some finessing. That's going to be, that alone, once everything is figured out, is going to take a full sprint of work at least to really get those interactions down perfectly. But to me, it feels like it builds off of one of these others, right? Like the simple recommended or some of these other ones that might be a good way to start there first, and then we can basically scope out the cover flow with maybe some of the connectors done first and do that right afterwards. Is that?
I'm going to call the ball here and say that cover flow should be a stretch, because if I'm an implementer, I first of all care about the underlying kind of data and the state of scrolling around and having them be visible or not visible, and of, this is key, progressively loading if it's a large list.
Yeah.
Let's say you got 10 of them, but only 3 are visible. Definitely want to have, for a PWA, the logic that makes sure that they don't all 10 render and all 10 images download if you're never going to actually go and see them. All of this stuff is more crucial to MVP to me than the specific visual treatment, because we're going to pick from one of these and all of them are good. So as a developer, I would say I want to leave that up to the developer and make it a surprise at the end.
And really, with the cover flow, you can see more than one image at a time. It's just that there's the additional motion of swiping and then clicking to get to the PD page.
Right.
That's the way that it differs from the one that is just a straight up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm absolutely fine. Whatever we decide to start with.
Yep. Okay. I think that's fair. I'm still hoping to be surprised though. I make sure that's noted.
It would be awesome. I mean, I can tell you, cover flow is hardware accelerated, high level CSS. Jimmy's probably like shrugging. Well, I just did it while we were talking, but my thinking is that might be challenging to get very high like performance. So let's just say, do it if you want to, do it if you can.
All right.
And then go back to this and say, let's scope it under the assumption that the cover flow is optional but a stretch. And to me, I think that's ready to scope. Does anyone feel like they don't have enough information to understand the sizing process for this story for the coming spring? Again, we're just deciding, less than a day is 1, day is 2, less than half a sprint is 3, half a sprint is 5, more than half a sprint is 8.
Yep.
All right.
And maybe to build, so I think there's the estimate piece, and there's also is this the right level of detail too? I know we've got kind of a different format, a little bit more specificity. Do we want to add anything more to this based on what we just talked about?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's edit it.
Yeah. Just leaving the witness on that one. All right. Let's take a look at what we've got here. So again, with the new format, these are not bugs, what we're talking about here. We're talking about pure backlog. We're not worrying about environments. We're stripping this out. We're getting right to the description, right? And then we also want to build on the scenario-based approach that we're talking about here. So I'm going to add this from our master story here. And as a shopper, I basically want to easily move from a image carousel. Do you still see this as a link of some sort to product?
Yeah, I mean,
I would think so, but
well, I mean, this is what we're
too?
talking about inside the product detail.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah.
Let's not worry about linkability and what it entails for now. I think
okay.
If you look at the comp, there's a zoom functionality that would be obviously the tap interaction if this was the main thing. Like if it's in a related widget, then tapping on it is something that you want to navigate maybe with a stronger intent. You're already on a product detail page, getting off. So let's.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, I adjusted that in midstream because of course we're not talking about the main product detail image at this point. So we're talking about the related thing. So yeah, the tap navigates to a new product detail.
Yep.
But don't implement that.
Right. So that's why. So I
story.
Yeah. So I did that. So basically, I think just the component itself, you want to be able to browse, and you want to be able to, take
as a
advantage
shopper,
of it.
I want to browse an image gallery carousel in multiple contexts, such as a related products widget or
recommended
products widgets,
so
that I can scan the catalog quickly and easily. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. Excellent. All right. And so just quickly reviewing the developer criteria here. So the developer want to create a product gallery component.
Yeah.
Is it still is it still valid? Anything? We've got a couple of examples that we talked about. We've got the cross-referencing. It would be nice to add some of these images here now that we know we can do that. So question is, which one? I'd say we can start with this. We can, essentially add them all, and then we can note that the cover flow itself is a push form, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, the image happens after, and then link happens before that. All right, so we've got this. Examples include primary, and then let's add the other components, other images here as well.
I mean, these components are different underneath, right? The image gallery is a very different component from the recommended products or the other ones.
So again, because there's a number of different things that are kind of being called gallery and carousel, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. Jimmy, when you say image gallery, do you mean what we're looking at right now, new arrivals, or are you thinking of the things on the product detail page that shows the main image?
Yeah, I'm saying whether it's new arrivals or recommended products or whatever else, those components are essentially the same underneath.
Right.
Right. It's just a list of links.
Yeah.
With one of them being selected or whatever.
So I think we're in agreement.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. All right. Any other? And I'll recommend it. Yep. We noted ratings is out of scope. And then we also want to note that cover flow. Not in for MVP. Stretch goal. All right. Love to see it. But again, we got to get the basics done first. Assumptions. So this is, I think we've changed this up a little bit in the last one. So let's work through this. So James, what would we say the assumptions are for this one? Just this, the same, the successful setup and completion, those types of things?
Yeah, I would say successful setup and completion of NES samples is sort of weird. Instead of those tasks,
these are the old ones.
Yeah, those are the old ones. And
yeah,
we can get rid of expected result and stuff because those are sort of like bugs. Yeah.
Yep. Or merging. And then these could be the better tasks, right? You already have these.
Yeah.
Cool. And then let's pull these out here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Love how in Zen Hub we're looking through a keyhole here, so otherwise I'd say look ahead at the tasks while we do this. All right, and the tasks, James, keep me honest on this one. Right now we just have one. I feel like we probably should have a few more on this one. This is from the original we had.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit with Carl about how tasking this out would work. So implement basic shell component GraphQL query from the arrivals is one way that we set up a sort of a test bed for it. But then I think the next thing is decide on and implement animation strategy for scanning or for scrolling.
Yep.
And then another task would be certainly implement on-demand data fetching to avoid downloads of content that is never seen.
All right, cool.
There we go.
That'll work.
Let's call this, I mean, again, to be clear, these are example starter tasks.
Yeah.
We think that they are legit tasks, but as an implementer, you are allowed to keep them, change them, remove them. So who's ready? I guess it's already assigned to Art. Art, is this still something that you're engaged in, or is this something you want to release back into sort of the sprint backlog for some people?
Okay, guys, there is another task, especially for new arrivals. Wait, I will send you a number. 162, product slider component for Venia. And yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So having looked at this before, that's why we dedicated so much of this discussion to deciding what the difference is between a slider, a gallery, and a carousel.
Right.
So, or we will mesh them together, all these components. I mean, logically, it is only to show, wait a second, what and how, what to show and how to behave it.
Yes.
Products, images, no matter, and how to behave it, slide, scroll, all other stuff.
So you're right. The way to do that in our sort of agile backlog management style would be to first implement something that is specific just for speed's sake and for quickness of implementation, that is specific to one look and feel and one type of data fetch. And then the second implementation for the new data or a new visual look would take that original code and then refactor it to be reconfigurable. And that's what I think ought to be done. If there's already a lot of configuration in there, it'll probably still need some more. So take that component that has some hard-coded aspects and then add a configuration point to it instead with a sensible default.
Makes sense.
I would caution us not to do too much dry code. It's easy to write components that are so generic that you are sort of prop drilling all of the context down into them, and it's really hard to find the place where your actual logic is implemented. Every time you inspect and react, you get something that received the function from like 20 grandparents ago, and it's hard to follow. So there is a limit to how much generic components work you can do without making the product unmaintainable. I would be happy with just something that I would be happy with something that just has one visual look for now that's new, and then later we can figure out how you might implement multiple visual looks on top of the same infrastructure.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Just for the slider.
Yep. So I think for the purpose of this one, I believe, is in flight. Again, just kind of coming back to this one from being off the bed. So this one's in flight. I think can we note this on our way to some, basically the larger version of this with the gallery? So knowing that that's in flight, do we need to repurpose? What do we need to learn from that one in kind of finishing the definition on this one?
Well,
maybe it's just the assignment. Maybe it's the next thing that Art picks up.
Perhaps it is.
Yeah.
Guys, let's assign it on me, and let's change days estimate. Okay, this estimated. Okay, I already started with task 162. So I checked GraphQL, all this data, it is there, works okay. So thanks GraphQL team. So leave it on me.
All right.
Cool. And then I know we've changed the spirit of the definition on this one, where originally we were in 8. Do you think that's still the case now that we've done some of the work in Slider? Or do you think it's more or less? What's your estimate for that?
No, 8 is okay.
Still okay? Okay. Good.
Let's leave it.
Perfect. And any other questions on this? Any questions or concerns that we need to raise before we save on this one?
No, in general looks okay. Then some tiny special questions, but while working.
Hey, while we're grooming, let's groom. We got the tweezers out. Let's ask your questions. We got a few minutes, and we've already done one story. Well, we already done
2. Yeah.
Nope. For now, have no questions.
Well, okay.
Cool. And you've got the images in there as well. So, yep. Perfect.
So as a long shot, I think with a little bit of extra time, why don't we talk a little bit about enablement and developer experience?
Okay.
We do want to parallelize more and more of the building of Venia components. And as you can see, you want to skip back to the docs tab.
Yep.
As you can see, there is a huge wealth of components to make.
Yep.
We don't have stories and acceptance criteria defined for enough of them. But now we have more people, we're going to be able to make that very parallel.
Yes.
Have a lot of people working on it. So we're going to go through and add a little bit more detail to the descriptions and then turn those into stories. But in lieu of that, we do have a lot of stuff backlogged for tooling. So let's take a look. If we look in the product backlog under, I don't know, the tooling epic or the discovery for the hosting
So we have
process.
a couple of them here.
Yeah. I have a few things open, so we don't need to any of those things. But does anyone here feel like messing with Webpack internals? No? I don't want to be pitching this to the wrong audience, certainly. So
you're referring to number 27?
There are a few places where you might be messing with Webpack internals. So there's 29, 27, 30. There's our root PHTML file, which currently has a hard-coded reference because we have stripped out most of the logic that would render an application block just for speed's sake. If anyone wants to engage on their PHP skills and go in and try to make that root file maybe more dynamic or respond to the manifest of files, that would be great too. But I don't want to make people scope a story that they're not familiar with. So anyone want to groom a PHTML editing story or anything? Nothing? All right.
I mean, the interest, if you feel like you've got it in your mind, I do see that as an enabler. Maybe we just knock that out. We just get a couple minutes left. If it's something that can go from beginning to end, I think that'd be valuable. Unless there's anything from the audience here, if there's a specific item that they've been hoping to get to, I'd love, maybe we open it up to that. But otherwise, let's knock out a quick one on enablement.
Well, we got. Oh, okay. So you're not saying take an existing story and groom it. You're saying knock out one.
Well, yeah. Just the one you just mentioned. Yeah. Let's have that as a backup. But if there's anything that's anything that Art or Jeff or anyone else had in mind, we can do that as well. I just want to make sure we're getting clarity in these.
Well, let's jump into PWA Studio number 30, which was migrated over.
Yep.
Root PHTML includes reference to pub static. So this is an artifact of the fact that a progressive web app under Magento PWA Studio right now is a theme. It's not always going to be, so work for this would be kind of a stopgap, but it would at least help us to understand how much of the PWA application shall render could be later done by a Magento module. let's take a look at root PHTML. Eric, I think without me sharing my screen, you can probably navigate to it really easily. Just in the PWA Studio repo.
All right.
Another tab.
Yep.
It's almost in. Yeah. So now, no, you don't have to.
Sorry.
You're good.
All right.
So press escape, and now if you press T, and then type root, take you right there. That's the first result. And here we have this root PHTML file. Now this effectively replaces the base template in Magento, which is why it's so sparse. But as you can see, just in order to enable us, we hard-coded Venia's theme name inside it, just based on the calculated Venia public static URL. That is, if you have static file signing turned off, etc. I think if you go through this history, you're going to find several darkly hilarious attempts by me to use the asset repositories or to grab something from Object Manager in order to dynamically render what this URL should be, but I never got to it. So it'd be great if we could make this URL dynamically generated, or even have a manifest of what entry point files need to exist in the app shell that you could then iterate through and render the script tags. Does anyone feel like they have an understanding of what that is, or what would be involved doing it? I can tell you for my part, it is super simple. I hacked something that's totally horrible, but without being subject to the Magento lifecycle, you're not working with large objects. I just use the server variable. I sent it a header that said, we're in dev mode, don't emit the vendor bundle, which I could, I don't think it's published. Do any of you guys have a notion of what it would look like to use PHP to make this thing dynamically render the public path? I know Jeff knows how to do it, right? He probably shouldn't be helping them, because he's on YouTube doing it.
I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. If this isn't groomable, we'll skip on to the next thing. We just got a few minutes left, and we want to leave time for people to bring up their own concerns. So let's go ahead and drop it, because it doesn't sound like we got a lot of traction. But there are other things of this nature. There's the fact that in loading an offline state, performance patterns. Scroll up. Support for trying this code out without vagrant, number 28. There is a Docker implementation now in the works by Paul Von Zerman, who has showed up to do a huge amount of work. And if he was here, we would, ask him about it. But let's talk about whether any of you guys feel like you could work on enablement of connecting this code to something besides a vagrant. We're all working not on vagrant, on Valet, but that is bound to Mac OS 10. It can be difficult to install, requires administrative privileges. So it would be great to kind of do some research into how you might connect PWA Studio to any store. Does anyone feel like, and again, this is a research and development question, so estimating it has mostly to do with how long you believe it would take to arrive at an answer to how hard it would be or arrive at a scope. This is like a scoping exercise for a scoping exercise, but that's Agile. So if you were assigned to go and do this, like how do we get a standard PWA Studio set up where you install it on your local machine, that it works for everybody, it works in the Windows environment, it works in Linux? How would you go about estimating that? I would say I would have to add points and time for the documentation, for the implementation, for the QA. No? I'm not giving it a lot of time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this to me seems like a 13.
Well, I mean, it seems huge, right? And so I'd like to see this as an epic, but maybe this is what I was just thinking in the back of my mind. Maybe we can ask Paul to help us build this out a little bit. I know he's got a lot of passion for this, but at least help him at least get started with that based on some of the progress this week.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's an epic really, because it's just about building a connector.
Okay.
I mean, it's part of an epic of supporting multiple platforms.
Yeah, I was just thinking in sheerly size. I mean, it's big enough that we need to be broken up in others. So
We can talk about this.
well, how about this for the purposes of today? Maybe we just let's spell this out essentially as a epic in its own right, just for completion,
Okay.
and then we can break things up maybe next week. So
Support multiple methods of connecting to Magento.
Yep.
Uh,
So in terms of updating this, do you see just relabeling this in some fashion of sort?
yeah, add support for multiple types of connector to a Magento 2
Yeah.
instance. Yeah. Gotta be.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Well, it's a good place to get to.
You should have to.
I saw it.
Okay.
I thought so.
All right, very good. Any so we've got this. We're considering this an epic. Then as far as the rest of this, what else we've got? We got some feedback.
How's
Anything
everybody
else?
doing?
All right.
Didn't step out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your help, Samia.
Thank you.
All right. Well, very good. Let's call this as is, and then again, let's do the follow-up with Paul. Maybe you can add some specifics here. Again, I think we can count some of the progress we've had that he's done, but also formalize it based on some of the things you've broken out. So,
Yeah.
in the interest of time, this probably makes more sense having Paul on this one. Again, just given his recent recent help for things.
And I have a backlog. Now, I have one more just broad-based request for everyone. We haven't made it very clear how we are rewarding and recognizing people for all the work that they do. Community engineering has done a great job of that, and they volunteered to help us get that organized. So we're still working on it, and we know it would be great to show you guys a little bit more specific appreciation for the things that you do. One thing that I would love is if there was more activity with code review. But I think that what I do, which is just name you as a code reviewer, like I've named Martin, I've named Art as code reviewers on pull requests, and then never follow it up. That's clearly not doing it. So first question, is code review of other people's pull requests something that you guys would like to help them do? It's okay if the answer is no, I'll just make sure never to mention you as a reviewer. So Art, is reviewing other people's code sort of part of how you'd like to participate?
Yep, actually, I want to tell you guys that reviewing some code is awesome stuff. So
Okay.
if you have something, just assign on me.
Well, you are assigned as reviewer to a couple of things.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, it's okay. Basically, if you're assigned as a reviewer and you do intend to review it, it would be great if you could mention, just in Slack or even as a GitHub comment, like, I do intend to review this, my review will come later. That would help us to know whether or not, to wait for your approval.
Yep, makes sense. Let's do it.
Great, let's do that. And I know that I named you, Martin, on a couple of code reviews. Is that something that your schedule can take, or that's something you want to do?
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't have the time right now to do a code review. Maybe some other people will have a little more time to do that. I'm trying to put myself together with the project because we had a massive upgrade with an enterprise migration back in our office. So I'm trying to do some documentation on CSS modules. I saw there was a couple of tasks to document. I tried also the task that we talked about before with the hard-coded URL on the client JS.
Yeah.
I would love to take that one, but I wanted to to talk a little bit more in depth about how the app will be like, how should be deployed, like
Yes.
in production mode, to understand that folder structure. I have experience in M2 themes, so I think I have the knowledge to take that one, but I should understand a little bit more about how it should be deployed the Venia to production to understand the full structure. So if we can have a little chat over Slack to talk about that, would be awesome.
Let's do it. I'll be available today over the weekends.
All right.
But yeah, I'd love to.
Great.
talk.
So please, Eric, assign that one to me.
Great.
Okay, perfect. We'll do.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I know we're at time, and I know it's particularly late, especially if you're in Europe. So I, can't be more happy and more thankful for everybody's support here. If you have any questions, as always, you can find us on Slack. You can find us on Twitter. We have our regular meetings like this every Fridays, and then we've got our demo early next week for what we finish out in the sprint. So in the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.